Well, I was a little bit nervous. It was the first full weekend of the European leagues where the Serie A, the Bundesliga, joined all the other leagues that were in action from a week before, La Liga, and the Premier League, just to name the big ones. All the other ones are in action too. And there's a lot to be pessimistic about when it comes to the USMNT player pool. Through Saturday and Sunday. Some guys not really getting into the mix. Weston McKennie was on the bench. Tim Weah started, and then Tim Weah came out for Weston McKennie. There was some bright spots here. You know, Brendan Aronson starting for Union Berlin, but not like it was at the height, right? In 2021, right there, when we had all these guys in the Champions League. You have Matt Turner, but then there's guys I'm very concerned about. Ricardo Pepi, not starting for the first 2 weeks. And for PSV Eindhoven, he is also going to be joined by a couple Americans in Melik Tillman and now Serginho Dest. But it's feeling a little bit more like Augsburg than it is Groningen for Pepi at his new club. Luuk de Jong starting the first 2 games. And there's going to be a lot of games for PSV. This could all remedy itself, but I get a little worried. So I needed a big boost on the Monday night game. With the 2 new Americans playing for AC Milan, well, one, because Yunus Musa suspended from the past season. He had to serve it here, which means Christian Pulisic. I held my breath. I know I didn't have to. We knew he was going to feature in this starting 11. But there he was, starting 11, and all was made well by a tremendous performance. We're going to break all of it down here on the Soccer OG. Check out the Soccer OG podcast where all podcasts are available. Got some good shows out there. Check out the entire library. It has been seen in 121 countries and counting. We have 2 great guests in this last episode with Eric Krakauer and Lloyd Sam. We talk about Leagues, Cup, Messi, etc. We'll have a big Premier League show coming out here in a couple days, so stay tuned to the Soccer OG podcast where you find all your podcasts. And like and subscribe us here on YouTube. We appreciate doing these videos for you as frequently as possible. I would do them more if I could. There's no shortage of topics, including Christian Pulisic, which is always going to resonate highly here with our American audience. So he was in the starting 11. Milan makes their debut, taking on Bologna, who finished in 9th place. They were a pretty good team. They lost some players in the offseason and replaced them, but they should project to be a mid-table side. And remember, the Serie A was a league that was highly improved last season. You had a team in the Champions League final. You had a team in the Europa League final. You had 2 teams in the Champions League semifinals. You had a team in the Europa Conference final as well. So very promising. And that's all without Juventus. You know, Milan and as well as Inter and Fiorentina's doing better, and Roma and Lazio. This league is on a really good trajectory. And it's a good spot for some of these Americans. And Christian Pulisic certainly was brought in there, we first thought, to sell some shirts. During the summer market, you know, the offers were rejected by Chelsea, and Milan stuck to their guns till they got their guy. And Stefano Pioli, obviously, this is somebody that he identified and wanted to see in Milan colors. And this is a club with incredible history. It's almost you have to stop for a second. I mean, all due respect to Chelsea, they can't touch Milan's history. Milan is the old guard, you know. To me, the Milan-Inter rivalry is the biggest rivalry in the sport. Don't at me the folks in Glasgow and Buenos Aires and all the others. This is the biggest rivalry because it's 2 teams, same stadium, in a city which has seen so many incredible players and moments go through it. It is that. It is the Derby della Madonnina. Derby della Madonnina. Sorry, I ate my words there for a little bit. So Christian Pulisic arrives. Great situation. Coach singing his praises. And then we wait to see he's in the starting 11. Because I remember 2019 when Chelsea then made a record signing to get Christian Pulisic. When you have a record signing of a player, that means he's going to start, right? You don't spend 60 million, 70 million and put a guy on the bench. That's exactly what Chelsea did under Frank Lampard back there in 2019. They started the season at Manchester United, Pulisic on the bench. I was infuriated at the time. I remember I tweeted about it. I'm not going to dig out that tweet, but I was. You know, it's what a moment. I mean, you bring a guy in to help your squad, and then you have a game at Old Trafford, and he's on the bench. They would end up losing that game, Chelsea, 4-0 to United. And it would just be a series of roadblocks and hurdles for Christian Pulisic at Stamford Bridge. And at long last, we were talking about it. I said it from a very early stage. I got a lot of pushback, but I knew something wasn't right there. This wasn't a fit. And Christian Pulisic had to leave. And he unfortunately had to stay a year longer than, maybe even a year and a half longer than he really should have. I mean, we're thrilled that he had that opportunity to win a Champions League final. And obviously, you don't want to leave right after you're at the top. But then another 6 months went by, and it's the same old, same old. You know, first it was injuries, and then coaches that didn't really rate him as highly as some other teammates. Which, in hindsight, you know, Christian Pulisic, you know, he's not a perfect player. But when we're talking about some of these guys like Kai Havertz and Conor Gallagher, it's Christian Pulisic, to me, and I think most people, it's a better option. We saw that a lot Monday in Bologna. So, it's already a great sign that he starts the first game. And then to see how involved he was. And we're going to temper things a little bit because we can't put all the eggs in this basket, right? We have got to be prepared because history has shown that Christian Pulisic is not an everyday player or an everyday starter, whether he was at Dortmund or Chelsea. We'll have to see how it looks here at AC Milan. But it's off to a much better start than it ever did at Chelsea. He played 30 minutes in that game, and then he rarely started, and then he got a little traction. But this is great. So this was the starting 11 for Milan, as you can see. And Rafael Leao, Olivier Giroud, Christian Pulisic in that front three. Krunic, and then the very talented one of many new faces, Tijani Reinders, who came from AZ Alkmaar on that left side of the midfield. Ruben Loftus-Cheek, and then Theo Hernandez, Tomari, Thiaw, and Calabria in the back four. AC Milan, again, a lot of turnover here. They're going to be a Champions League outfit, so there's a lot of excitement certainly around this club. And Christian Pulisic, along with Reinders and many others, Chukwueze, they're brought in to really put this team over the top. By the way, one thing I've noticed by watching a fair amount of Serie A over the weekend is the proliferation of the Dutch players. Just like in the good old days. Remember Milan had Frank Rijkaard and Marco van Basten and Ruud Gullit, the Dutch trio there. I forgot the nickname they had. It was really cool. But they played there and so many others. And now you've seen this Dutch resurgent here. I want to tell a funny story because I got in a discourse with someone about pronunciations of players. And I'm always a stickler to pronunciate these names correctly. But what I've discovered in being in this industry for so long, when you have these players playing in a foreign league, they aren't sticklers to the pronunciation. And they want to be accepted, right, in their new league. So they let you call them whatever they want. A perfect example, I cover LAFC and they have a Polish player about Mateusz Bogusz. And I asked him, how would you pronounce it? He goes, just call me Matty. I go, fine. They want that, so I can't sit here and tell them how to say their name. But Ruud Gullit, who I believe that's the way he pronounced it, when I saw him when I was working at ESPN, I go, how do you want me to pronounce your last name? You know what he told me? He said, I don't care. I go, is it Gullit? Is it Gullit? He goes, whatever. But what do you prefer? He goes, it doesn't matter. This was a conversation. So I just want to share that story. And I could shoehorn Ruud Gullit in this discussion today on the Soccer OG. So, starting 11, and like gangbusters, hugely influential. We all saw it together. He gets the hockey assist where he put the ball in. Reinders put it in. Giroud scores. Great exchange caught on camera between Giroud and Pulisic because they were together at Chelsea. And by the way, Ruben Loftus-Cheek, another former Chelsea player, he looked liberated getting out of Stamford Bridge. There is something wrong with that club. There is something wrong with Chelsea, who, by the way, signed Georgi Petrovic, a goalkeeper for the New England Revolution. We're hearing these stories about Folarin Balogun possibly going there too. So Chelsea, it's a very interesting club. And check out my last video. If you haven't checked my last video, and I know it's not going to get as much traffic, but check it out about Moises Caicedo, a very interesting outlook about the player and the club. But Chelsea, it can't be easy. And we've seen how poorly they have started this season. So there's a liberated Christian Pulisic. So he's involved in the first goal. Then he combines with Hullet. Then he combines with Giroud and hits one of the best goals he has ever scored. Absolutely glorious to give Milan the comfortable edge, which they protected till the end. I'm trying to catalog. I've seen a couple good goals by Christian Pulisic of a different ilk of dribbling. I think that one against Man City when he played for Chelsea in the 2020 season on their way. I think preventing Manchester City from winning that, or helping Liverpool win the title by defeating Man City. That one comes to mind, but not many others. And not saying he hasn't had many goals. This was just a spectacular goal. So Christian Pulisic could not have gone much better, right? Scores a goal, assists on the other goal, came out at the 73rd minute. And that was the only thing I kind of... Because I want him to be a 90-minute player. I want him to show his coach that he can close out games. And he was one of the first players pulled out. His defense isn't really his forte, but you would like him to show that he can finish games because you never know what happens. Because at the U.S. men's national team, he's not being replaced under any circumstance. You would like that to be the same with the club. Most players of that level, or at least the level that Pulisic wants to be, goes the full 90 minutes. Maybe he will. It's hard to say. Now, Samuel Chukwueze, who came in, is the biggest threat to Pulisic for playing time. And keep in mind, Milan's going to be kept busy. There will be plenty of minutes to share around, but we don't want to get into this thing of who's the starter. And he's played on the right side. He was there on the right side for the most part, tucked in a little bit. Rafael Leao was essentially the number 10, but he shared that responsibility with Pulisic on the flanks. There's not going to have that discussion there's not going to have that conversation with Rafael Leao. So you don't want to have it with Christian Pulisic. Go, hey, he can start some of the games. You want him to say he's the guy. Chukwueze will come in sometimes and play. Maybe give Leao a breath. Maybe come into the midfields. We shall see. But again, we can be very excited, but we have to approach this with a grain of salt. Because we know how rocky it's been, right, in the past. And we can't just assume, click of a fingers, he is going to be a Milan heartthrob and he is going to log 4,000 minutes, I don't know, in a season. And keep in mind the injury history. And he is going to be protected from these situations as well. So very interesting in what we can expect from Christian Pulisic moving forward. Now, the Gazzetta dello Sport, the #1 publication for soccer in Italy, gave him a 7.5 rating, which was the highest of anyone. There's a few guys with 7, but he was the only one with 7.5. Obviously, scoring that goal goes a long way. And people look into that. And if you get high ratings, you generally don't get the hook. So Christian Pulisic's not going to score in every game. Maybe he is. But we can see that, it really was a tremendous start for so many reasons. But you got to look around for the signs to make sure he's comfortable. And I saw one, or I heard one from the broadcast. The name of the broadcaster escapes me. He calls a very good game. But, we all talk about this Christian Pulisic situation with pronouncing his name, pardon me. Pronouncing his name. Is it Pulisic? Is it Pulisic? Is it Pulisic? Stefano Pioli kind of approached it, and he has given him a nickname, according to the announcer, called Dici. So he has a nickname for Pulisic, calls him Dici. A term of endearment. You don't give terms of endearment to players that you don't really rate or you don't really want on the inner circle. Pulisic certainly has the respect of Pioli, something we didn't hear ever at Chelsea, whether it was Lampard, whether it was Thomas Tuchel. It's different here. And now Christian Pulisic can head towards the next week. They'll be at home. What a moment it will be for him. We expect him to start at the San Siro. He's playing on Saturday. Look forward to seeing that, so it's a short week. And then we'll start seeing more and more important games for AC Milan. But right now, after a difficult weekend, we had all the wind back in our sails, seeing what Christian Pulisic is capable of in a situation where he is prepared and set up to succeed, and he walks away gaining so many more fans. He's not just there to sell t-shirts or jerseys. He is there, and now the Milan fans are very, very high. They wanted him in there, and now they know why, and they're off to a winning start. And I love the fact that he is part of so many new faces for Milan, so they all have to shoulder that. But very exciting stuff. Christian Pulisic, he saved the day for the American players, and guess what? When we see them again on Saturday, he'll be joined by Yunus Musa. The midfield needed some work for Milan, so that wasn't Pulisic's fault, but they were absorbing a lot of pressure in the second half from Bologna. So Musa is going to maybe be the biggest advocate for Pulisic moving forward. We can't wait to see it. Christian Pulisic off and running in his new digs. In a perfect club, it would appear for now, but let's not count our chickens before they hatch. Let's temper our excitement. But so far, so good. The Soccer OG. Check out the Soccer OG podcast where all podcasts are available. Like and subscribe us here. We will be back with more great videos regular times during the week. We'll see you soon.